to another edition of the Mindful Warrior. A new introduction there because this is a new pod and a new day.
Woo!
And we're going to talk about exactly what you heard us just chanting about. Ayahuasca. Eben just had a little journey into the world of ayahuasca. What's up, Eb? How are you?
I'm great, brother. How are you?
Good. You still sound like yourself. You still look like yourself.
Yeah, I'm still here.
But as we do on this show, we're trying to figure out ways to heal, to get back to our most healthy selves, to move forward spiritually, to shed those old layers of skin, and to become who we're really meant to be. And you went on a journey this weekend that was part of that.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, you know what time it is. Come on, Jed.
Thank you for introducing me. Hi, everybody.
Oh, hey, Jed. I'm sorry.
We're here with Jed.
What's up, Jed?
Book Club. Woo!
Sorry, Jed.
I love it.
I was just so excited, man, because I'm standing up right now, playing drums. This is new.
We got Gandalf locked outside, though.
Yeah, Gandalf's not in here
That's
right
all
now.
right. That's all right.
Do we need to let him in?
We might have to.
Maybe in
He'll
a
come
little
over
bit.
and say, hey, let me in.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe in a little bit. So today, book club number, this will be the sixth. This is the sixth book of our book club edition. Another spiritual book. It seems like all I have to introduce are books about spirituality and weird shit.
Well, you're a spiritual weird dude.
Yeah, it's kind of the train I'm on.
Fucking talk about that train.
Fuck it, man. This book, it's a classic. It is Be Here Now by Ram Dass. Ram is, his given name is Dr. Richard Alpert. He was a famous professor of psychology, neuroscience. He was teamed up with Timothy Leary back in the day. They did a lot of LSD together and a lot of psychedelic adventures together, which really led him on his spiritual path. He traveled to India. He met his guru, the Maharaji, where he learned really that, LSD was just a way into his own spirituality. And his book, Be Here Now, really chronicles that path. He's got his own story of going from Harvard professor, very well-respected guy, to being let go at Harvard. Him and Timothy Leary, there was a big, they were essentially fired.
They got a little too radical for Harvard.
Got a little too radical. It's interesting, though.
Turn on, tune in, drop out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He was one of the main dudes involved in that. One of their undergraduates that they were working with, another famous doctor in the space, Dr. Andrew Weil, a lot of very prominent thinker on the topic of integrative medicine and humanity and finding yourself, spirituality, all the good stuff that we love. This is a dense book. It's vast. It is, but not a terribly difficult read either.
I'm seeing you flip through it, and it looks as it's written horizontally across the page in a way that you're not used to reading books, and also has some interesting print.
Yes.
So that's interesting about it.
Yeah. So he's got his story is written very matter of factly. It's a good read. But then he really launches into the spiritual pamphlet section of the book, which he calls it is From Bindu to Ohas, which is those are Hindu terms for this journey from the muck to your spiritual self, the hero's journey.
Bindu to Ohas.
Yes. And so it starts the heart cave. It's all about going back to the heart.
Mm.
The heart cave. Except ye be converted and become as little children, ye shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Unless you start again, become that trusting, open, surrendered being, the energy can't come in. That is the kingdom of heaven. The energy, it is the same thing, cosmic consciousness.
Mm.
Want me to read another one?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Consciousness equals energy equals love equals awareness equals light equals wisdom equals beauty equals truth equals purity. It's all the same trip. It's all the same. Any trip you want to take leads to the same place.
And where's that?
Purify enough, become, immerse, beauty, become it. The potter becomes his pot. Embrace the 10,000 beautiful visions. Become one with the universe. All the energy passes through you. You are all the energy, and it all resides in your heart. If you can go within to your spiritual heart, your hridayam, you will then know that you are he. And it is from this place in our heart cave where we are now. We watch the entire drama that is our lives. We watch the illusion with unbearable compassion.
Mm.
The potter becomes the pod.
There you go.
That's right.
The podcaster becomes the podcast.
Ooh.
There is writing happening. Maybe that's hard for you to understand. I am here, but I am not here. I am writing, but I am not writing. Inside of me in the heart cave is a mantra going on that reminds me who I really am over and over again. In this inner place, I am. And even as I write where this mantra is going on, I'm just watching with great awe and wonder the awesome drama of nature unfold before my very eye. Before that I, which sees all and knows all, and on inside goes. Om Mani Padme Hum, always bringing me right to my heart where I dwell eternally.
When was that written?
This was written, let's see, sometime in the 60s, 70s. Ram Dass now lives out in Hawaii.
Oh, he's still ticking.
He's still kicking, man.
Is he still dropping acid?
No. I think he put the acid down sometime around when he got to India.
Okay.
Met the Maharaji.
So he's a yogi probably now?
Yeah, and a funny story he talks about in here. So he's got his bottle of acid that, was basically like, I can't live without this stuff. And he's traveling around India, and he's looking for someone who, quote unquote, knows. Someone who knows what the fuck life is all about, what this thing we're doing is supposed to be, right? And he finds himself at the feet of the Maharaji. And he thought to himself before he met him, before he found this guy, he's like, when I get there, I'm going to ask him, I'm going to show him this acid, and I'm going to ask him what this is, right? And he gets the Maharaji, and he's just so overcome with gratitude and compassion and sees the look in this dude's eyes of pure love, that idea of I am he, and he forgets all about it. The Maharaji's people, he kind of has these caretakers. They take Ram and they take him to a room and they give him a place to stay. And in the morning, when he gets back to his room, he realizes, like, oh shit, I totally forgot to ask him about the LSD. In the morning, when he wakes up, he's got a knock on his door, and it's one of the devotees of the Maharaji. And he says, Maharaji wants to see you. So he's like, okay. He goes up to the Maharaji, and the Maharaji basically says, you have a question for me. And Ram Dass is like, oh yeah, the acid. And Maharaji holds his hand out. and Ram puts a tab of acid in his hand. And he says the tab was probably about 150 to 200 milligrams of acid.
Is that a lot?
So he says for a person that's about, 50 to 60 years old, which we're guessing the Maharaji was somewhere around there, maybe a little bit older, maybe like 65, 70. He said 50 to 70 milligrams of LSD would be a lot, would be like plenty for a person of that age. Maharaji keeps his hand held out. And Ram's like, and Maharaji shakes his head, positively saying, give me more.
Give me the acid.
So he puts a second tab of acid into his hand. So now he's up to about 400 plus milligrams of acid. Still, the Maharaji keeps his hand held out. He puts another tab of acid on it in his hand. Still more. He puts another tab of acid until he's got about 900 to 1,000 milligrams of acid in the Maharaji's hands. Maharaji takes it all.
Shoves it up his butt.
Takes it all right in his mouth. And Ram's like sitting there. He's like, I don't even know what the fuck is about to happen. Like, this is going to be something to watch right here. And he sits there for hours and nothing happens to the Maharaji. He just sits there and breathes. People come to him. He continues to exist as if nothing had happened. And it occurs to Ram Dass that this is what it is, That he lives at that level. He lives in another plane of consciousness where acid is basically what gets everyone else to that place.
Right.
And that is our newest addition to the book club, Ram Dass Be Here Now.
Book Club!
Woo!
Not only is that a great book club edition, it's also a nice segue into our first segment, during which we're going to discuss Eben's recent journey into the world of ayahuasca. This is something that we've kind of been going towards on our spiritual quest. Mostly Eben. He's the shaman of the group. We all know that. He's leading the way for all of us.
Leading the charge, yeah.
Leading the charge for all of us. He's introducing me personally to things I would have never discovered on my own. That book is one of them, and ayahuasca is another one of them. And why don't you go ahead and start telling us about this, Eb? It happened this weekend.
Yep. Friday night.
So one of the things that I was always a little leery about when I heard about ayahuasca ceremonies happening in Los Angeles, for example, is can you make it authentic?
Right.
Is it real, or is it some manufactured LA version of something from somewhere else? And a lot of times when people bring things to LA, it turns LA and you get people who are like all LA about it, right?
Cultural appropriation.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shamanic appropriation.
Yeah.
Which
Which
shaman.
could probably be very dangerous.
Very dangerous, because I've had conversations with people who went to some of these places and had very bad experiences. Who went to a house in Beverly Hills and had their little mat and their little bucket to barf in, and it was very clinical almost, and they didn't get much out of it other than feeling like they went through a spin cycle. Who got slammed down, and then we're left thinking, what's next?
Yeah.
But you obviously had a very different experience, and you were led to this moment by some people that we've met and that we trust. And so describe a little bit about that night. How did it start? How did it go?
Yeah, man. First of all, it was done with the same peeps that we did our combo with.
Dr. Joshua was among them.
Dr. Joshua was there. Kirk Westwood, the Luck Bubble, he was there.
Kirk Westwood from the Luck Bubble was there.
That's right. So you can go back and listen to previous podcasts so you can hear these people and really get a full picture of what's going on.
Yeah,
This is right away.
absolutely. It was led by our medicine woman, Karina. Her fiance is this really profound individual, profound human being. He is the young chief of the Yawanawa tribe from the Amazon. He is really the only word I can use to describe him is he is a profound healer. He is born to do what he is doing, and the music that he plays throughout the ceremony, the stories that he tells, the way he conducted it was just being immersed in waves of spiritual, deep healing.
And an ancient tradition that has been refined for thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yes.
It's not like some Western doctor who's like, here, take this thing that we just got FDA approval of because we discovered this compound 8 years ago. No, this is jungle wisdom.
Yes. This is...
And he traveled from the Yawanawa tribe from Brazil to LA specifically to help heal.
That's it. He's bringing these medicines to the Westerners, bringing these medicines out into the mainstream world. And at the end of the ceremony, which we'll get to, he talks about why and the significance of that. Going into it, I've heard it all. I've heard it all. I've read a lot about it. This was something that really has been calling me since I was a teenager, for whatever reason, and the ceremony really enlightened me to the medicine. Mother Aya really highlighted to me why it's been calling me since I was probably, 16 years old. From the time I first heard about, these sort of vision quest type medicines that took you deep into your spiritual self and brought you, teachings from the outside world that you can't read about, you can't find anywhere in a textbook. And ayahuasca is, to break down the plant, what it is. It's a tea that they brew for many hours. It's the combination of two different vines found in the Amazon.
So it's two different plants.
Two different plants that they come together. One of those plants...
Do we know the horticultural name for those plants?
I'm sure we could look it up.
Jed, you got to know it. You're on there.
We got a Bannister Serapissus Cappy vine.
Oh, I saw some of that at Whole Foods yesterday.
Cappy vine. There you go.
I almost got it, but it didn't look organic.
We got Chacruna. That's the leaves.
Chacruna.
Chaliponga. Chagropanga.
Chagropanga.
And Imaruka.
So this really is a recipe.
It's yes.
It's like wow, and this must have been perfected through, like we were talking about before, trial and error over thousands and thousands of years, and so it's very easily could be askew.
Absolutely.
By someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, who knows? You've got to have a deep understanding of, how these plants function to be able to brew this tea. So one of the vines there's one plant that they put in that actually contains the DMT, which is a molecule, that's the psychedelic molecule.
Right.
That's the one that we produce in our pineal gland. Something to keep in mind throughout this is that these are chemical compounds that our bodies produce naturally. And
similar to the cannabinoids or whatever.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then the other important key component of the ayahuasca is the other vine that has the MAOI ingredient, which inhibits your digestive system from breaking down the DMT so that you can get full absorption of that DMT.
Right.
Now, going into this process, we've talked about it. You guys listening have been on the journey with us through this process. I've really, I've gone through levels of transition, and coming to get to know myself and life after football, shedding tons of emotional shit and physical and mental trauma that I never had an opportunity to work on throughout my football career. And, it really all led me to this point. The combo was sort of the first step. And then
Hape.
the
Sananga.
sananga, these fantastic shamanic medicines from the earth that really have profound effects on you.
I will say that I was looking at you last week, and I'm looking at you now, and you seem lighter.
Yeah.
You seem stronger.
Yeah.
You got a different color to your face.
Thank you.
You seem calmer.
Yeah.
You seem like you passed through something.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to hear about it.
So I heard just about everything going into this. You know, I read everything I could that I possibly wanted to about it. You know, I've heard everything from you shit yourself and throw up all over yourself to...
Sounds like a Saturday night for Jeb.
Yeah! To... Woo!
Puke and shitting!
Pooping pants! To you just have the most intense emotional experience, you know, to, you know, people telling me, hey man, it was a really beautiful experience for me. I had a really incredible journey on it.
Yeah.
You know, that being said, I didn't really know what to expect. And some of the shamans that I've been hanging out with, you know, in preparation or, you know, as I've geared up for this, you know, really said that, you know, it's different for everyone. The experience is different for everyone. The medicine is going to give you what you need. And once you commit to the ayahuasca, you make that commitment, that spiritual, emotional commitment that I'm going to do this ceremony, your shit starts to come up. Whatever shit that you deal with, your emotional baggage, the little mechanisms in you that try to keep you safe, your ego, all these different things are going to start to emerge. And that really happened for me.
And that's in advance of doing it.
That's before anything's even happened.
Because there's a diet involved.
There's a diet, a very strict diet, which let me talk about that. So the diet, I can get it on my phone here because I still have the picture of it, but it's incredibly strict. And it's very close to what these shamans put themselves through in their training in the jungle. You know, you read about it in The Cosmic Serpent, where these guys are eating nothing but green bananas and a little bit of fish and, you know, drinking ayahuasca daily. But the diet, let me give you a little taste here. No salts, table salt, soy sauce, fish sauce, no sauces, no sugar or artificial sweeteners, no pork or red meat, no shellfish, no caffeine, no coffee, green tea, black tea, soda, chocolate, no animal fat, no dairy products, no oil, no seaweed, kelp, dulce arame, no hot spices, chilies, peppers, no ice cold or carbonated drinks, no dried fruits, no citrus, no fibrous fruits, mango or pineapple, no vinegar or pickled foods, no fermented foods like kimchi, tofu, or tempeh, no spinach or tomatoes, no onion or garlic, no avocado, no yeast or yeast extracts, no alcohol, no recreational or prescription drugs, unless approved by your healing center or shaman, no fluoride toothpaste, no sexual activity, including masturbation, kissing, and raising kundalini energy.
Oh, wow.
Wow. What's kundalini energy?
That's that sexual energy.
Sexual vibe, but no kissing.
Yeah, no kissing.
That's intense.
No discordant.
Like, sorry, babe, I can't kiss you. Doing ayahuasca next week.
Yeah.
Which has probably made your wife a little bit like, what?
Yeah, what the fuck
You're
are you
not
doing
only are you doing
now,
all this,
Eben?
Yeah, not only are you adhering to this crazy man diet, but you can't touch me?
No discordant music, reading, media, or movies.
Discordant.
Like distressing.
Right.
No violent shit.
Jesus.
Avoid synthetic soaps, perfumes, toiletries. Ideas for seasoning your food since you can't have shit.
Spit in it.
Fresh herbs, basil, oregano, thyme, sage, dill, mild spices, cumin, coriander, dill, sage, turmeric, or coconut aminos, which I leaned on heavily.
Yeah.
Because one of my things I really hit me hard was the no salt.
Yeah.
I realized I have this fucking craving for salt.
Yeah. Especially living here in Los Angeles, you feel that because you sweat and you don't realize it. You always feel that salt after exercise, especially.
Yeah.
Like I like to eat just potato chips after I work out. Potato chips and water. You're just like, oh, that's good.
Well,
a
I'm
good
a big
post-workout
sweater.
meal.
I'm sure you're a big sweater,
Yeah.
Jed, and I sweat a ton of salt, so I get fucking really dehydrated, and that's a big thing for me. So what I basically ate leading up to it was vegetables. I ate, it says you can have organic free-range chicken. I had that. I had some fish. And then they allow you to eat all the veggies except for onions, garlic, spinach, tomatoes, leeks, or radishes. Fruits. I had some bananas, raw nuts and seeds, and I drank some tea and water. So the diet, very specific, very strict.
Yeah.
And who knows, everybody I talked to leading up to it said, you know, it's not necessarily going to kill you, but it's going to maybe inhibit the experience. You might not be able to go as deep. The purging might be worse.
A lot of the things you mentioned are high in acid.
Yeah.
Especially vinegar, all the vinegary things.
Right.
So that maybe they want like a nice unacidic stomach.
Alkaline,
an alkaline
environment for it.
Were you worried about anything bad happening? Because there are, people have died, but not a lot, but there are people who have like...
I had a lot of fear come up, man. I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of doubt come up leading up to it. I was, fearful of the unknown. I was fearful of feeling like, I've gotten myself on this path that I feel really good about. I feel like I'm in a really good run here of understanding who I am, what I want to do with my life now, where I'm going. And I was fearful of, what if this thing tells me I'm fucking totally off track? What if it just keeps hitting me with things that it's like, man, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I was fearful that I might not come out of it the same guy. I was fearful, I had a lot of doubt came up like, Eb, are you sure this is something that, you really want to do? Are you sure that this is, the next step for you? Are you sure you need to do this? I was crying a lot during that time leading up to it. My family had a lot of questions about it. What is this going to mean? Is this safe? And so those were all things that really were weighing me down. And like you said last week when we came in to do the pod, it was the day before. I was fucking heavy, man. Mm-hmm. I was feeling heavy with emotion.
I even felt it via text.
Sure.
Your texts were heavier.
Yeah.
There were less fucking like positive emojis and like
positive,
no exclamation points. It was just like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
When Eb stops putting in the emojis, we know he's being serious.
Yeah. There's some shit going down. So I had discussed with the shaman, Karina, because Iskukwa, the chief, he only speaks Portuguese. So I had never met him until the day of, but I told Karina that I'd get there early to help her set up. So my brother, Gus, Nate, you were out of town. Next time we're fucking rocking it together.
I'm in.
So we got there at around 3:00. They had said the ceremony wasn't going to start until about 9. We got there at about 3:00 in the afternoon. This beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills up on a hill, overlooking a canyon that was like an old temple of some kind that I had heard. I have no proof of this, but I had heard that it was built on top of a massive crystal. So it conducts tons of energy, spiritual energy in there. And this place was bought by some wealthy dude. God knows what he does or who he is. But there were millions. The place was covered in mosaic tiles. The floors, the pillars, the walls, tons of idols, statues,
like spiritual of religion or
spiritual, like Buddha, Ganesh. There were Hindu and Buddhas and what is the maybe not Zen, but another Pacific Asian type tapestries covering the walls. You know, it was a very spiritual domain.
No Jesus though, huh?
No Jesus, no crosses, lots of crystals.
I wonder if Jesus ever did ayahuasca.
He probably did, man.
There's a Middle East version that has contains
ibogaine.
Similar chemicals.
Yeah,
so it's possible. We don't know.
Definitely possible. So we get there and we set this place up. Had a chance to meet Isku before he headed up. I guess maybe he was napping, getting ready, because he's, the whole ceremony, went from about 10 o'clock at night until sunrise the next day. And this dude is just playing songs the whole time. Blessings and telling stories. And so time comes, man. Oh, Dr. Joshua got there. I did some hape before, really got grounded, really started to feel the energy of the ceremony build and coming into play. And then we all sat down. It was a big circle. There were probably 35 to 40 people, ranging from, old hippies who looked like they'd been there 1,000 times to spiritual people like Dr. Joshua and Kirk, to young hipsters who are coming on this journey of self-discovery, to even like the young, nerdy, psychedelic dudes who, were like, have you ever done ayahuasca before? I'm like, no, man, this is my first time. Well, it's a
transcendental experience.
It's a miraculous little molecule.
None of them rode there on bird scooters, did they?
I don't think they'd make it up the hills.
Yeah, I don't think they would have made it.
Teaser.
But one thing I should say is that when we were setting the place up and we started having a conversation with one of the guys there that was there to help set up, and he actually wasn't doing the ceremony that night, but he was going to do it the next night.
Oh, they had two.
Yeah, they had.
Oh, that's right.
So they say that in your first time you should really do two. I was only able to do the first night.
Right.
But he had done it about 8 times before, this guy. And he's like, I'm like, so what's your take on it, man? What was it like? And he's like, it's it's very, very difficult. Very difficult. All these things, the trauma from your childhood, these old things come through, and I had to shit. And, I have these voices just in my head like, why do you hold on? Just let it go. Why are you holding on to your shit? And let it go. And I was just like, all right, fuck, man. And he really painted a dark picture. And it didn't help my state of mind in the moment. And so anyway, the ceremony gets underway eventually, later on that night, hours later. And it's about 9:30, 10 o'clock when Isku comes down. I mean, this dude is really, he's got a feather headdress on. He's got the war paint, the shaman paint, face paint going. And he begins to explain in Portuguese. There was a translator, which Portuguese, by the way, is one of the most beautiful languages I've ever heard. It was like magic coming out of his mouth. You could feel it.
Part of that too was probably the environment, the state you were in.
Yeah.
The setting, the expectations.
Yeah.
Not saying it's not a beautiful language, but it was all.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And he starts to tell about what the medicine is. He starts to talk about, what Mother Aya brings to you. He calls out there were a handful of guardians, as they call them. The guardians are people who are experienced in the ayahuasca ceremonies, who are essentially there to aid anyone who's having a really difficult journey. They can help take people to the bathroom. They help clean up the vomit buckets. They can help soothe you if you're going through some emotional, intense thing. Whatever it is, these are people that are there to provide you with comfort and security that you're still in a safe environment. So he starts off and it's all song driven, it's all music. And he begins with just a cappella singing these very beautiful melodies in his native language of the Yawanawa tribe. These are songs that have been passed down for thousands of years.
This is before you drank the stuff?
This is, let's see, he does a little explanation, and then he gets to, now we're going to go around the circle, and please come line up to get your medicine.
And it comes in liquid form.
Comes in liquid form. It's this brown, very earthy looking tea, thick, and and people started on his right, started lining up in front of him. He would pour them a cup, which was probably about 2 ounces, I would say. It was anywhere from 2.5 ounces to 1.5 ounces. You tell him if it's your first time, and he knows how to gauge your dose. And they say that first cup hits you in about 30 to 40 minutes. And what everyone told me to expect was you see a kaleidoscopic flurry of color in front of you, and you might begin to feel sick, maybe not, it depends. But that's sort of the beginning of the journey. And so he starts pouring everybody a cup. Everyone gets their first cup.
Do you have like a special cup?
No, it's just one cup.
No, is it like a Dixie cup?
No,
is
it's
it like a ceramic?
It was a very ornate, larger shot
Eben.
glass.
Or Jed.
Nice.
It was like a bigger shot glass.
Right.
That had some really beautiful sort of designs on it. And so everyone gets their first cup, and then he starts singing the first song. And he talks about how now we're going to start calling in the good vibrations and the good spirits to come and bless this ceremony and to scare away. And we're going to light this smoke. We're going to smoke the room. One of my angels is going to come and my guardians is going to come and soak you guys in this smoke of this very particular herbal smudge. And he starts singing. Starts singing songs and calling in the good spirits.
Ayahuasca.
It's kind of, that might be disrespectful that we were singing that song,
man.
But
we're channeling the good vibrations.
Yeah, absolutely. But they've got. I wish I had recorded some of it. Next time, I'll ask to record the music.
I know Dr. Joshua's got some recordings. We can ask him to send them to us. We can play them on here.
Yeah, absolutely. So he starts singing. And sing like 3, 4, 5 songs maybe, and the ayahuasca starts flowing, man. And you start feeling the music, and you start looking around, and you start feeling the oneness and the connectedness. You feel
with the other people in the room.
Yeah, you feel the energy of the space starting to build. You feel like a really warm sense of euphoria.
When Karina described ayahuasca as, she was telling us about all the shamanic medicines, and she said that ayahuasca was like the grandmother.
Yes.
That maternal feeling that just hugs you.
Yes.
And you felt that.
Absolutely.
And is everybody just sitting around? Are you pacing?
Everyone's sitting. Just kind of grooving. Okay. People are meditating.
Is anyone vomiting?
There wasn't a ton of purging. There wasn't a whole lot of people just violently throwing up. There were a handful. It was much less than I expected. I sort of expected it to be like a vomitorium. But, it wasn't really like that. It was like we had talked about earlier before we got going, it was really gentle. You weren't, after that first cup, at least my experience, I wasn't plunged into the abyss, where all my demons were suddenly surrounding me and I had to fucking...
We've been waiting for you, Eben.
Just launch into battle.
Finally, you're here.
It was very... all of the guardians, all of the shamans, they refer to her as a she, as Mother Aya, as the grandmother, who is going to show you what you need to see in the way that you need to see it, in the way that will make sense to you.
Right.
And, that first cup, it was very warm. It was very much getting into a positive state, a positive feeling. And then he goes, now it's time. We're going to start to incorporate some instruments into it. He pulls out his guitar. There were some musicians sitting with him that were also part of the ceremony. That, there was one dude who had his a big drum that he was working on. There was a woman from Mongolia who had this handheld large tambourine drum who also sang some songs that literally vibrated through my fucking soul.
And by this time, you were on, what, cup number 2? Because you said you took 3.
Now he opens up. So he's like, now we're going to open up the medicine again for anyone who'd like to come and have a second cup.
Shot.
Nobody's doing that, thankfully.
Little John comes out.
Yeah.
Body shots.
So we go around the room, go get our second cup. I go and get my second cup. Now the medicine is really starting to flow. I'm starting to see energy waves. I'm starting to feel even more cemented into the environment. I'm feeling the energy of, the ether.
Some of that stuff that Ram Dass was talking about.
Absolutely. It was looking back, it was very yogic. It was really like a 7-hour meditation. This experience. And this book I'm reading that will soon be on the book club is by this guy Sadhguru, who I've posted about, who I got to meet a few weeks ago. And he's got this book, Inner Engineering. And in part of it, in the yogic philosophy, they talk about the 5 elements: air, water, earth, fire, and the ether. And the ether is space. This is another element, that we all exist in, the space between, the space within, the space without. There's much more space around us than there is shit in it, right? You look up at the sky at night and there's much more black than there are stars. And so I could feel the energy swirling through the ether with these songs, and the music starts playing more. I got a maraca to start playing and started just feeling the groove and the flow of the music and the tribe that I was a part of in that evening. And at this time, I never had any. I wasn't sure what to expect on the visual side of things. I've done psilocybin, I've done LSD. Neither of those things did I ever really hallucinate. I've read The Cosmic Serpent. I've heard stories of people seeing snakes in front of them, animals coming into the fold. And the visions that I got only came when I closed my eyes. And things that came through were, I saw 2 snakes coil around this window that looked into another space, which to me, represented a lot of, through your DNA, through your lineage, your genetics, you will find a lot of answers. I also got, you are a window for this medicine to others. You are, part of your journey is to bring this message into the world. I saw wolves in neon sort of surrounding them. Yeah.
There it was.
Yeah, there it was. And
it's not a coincidence.
I saw energy waves. I saw energy begin to, and then with my eyes open, once we got into that third cup, with my eyes open, I started to see energy emitting from things. Started to watch as, I shook the maraca. I could see the energy waves of my hand emanating from my body out of myself. I could look over across the room at others, and see energy fields emitting from people. I looked across the circle at my brother, Gus, and had this...
He was on the other side. He wasn't next to you?
Yeah, he was across from me. And
That's
a guy who went into it really just coming to support, he ended up taking the ayahuasca.
So he didn't do the dieta in advance?
He didn't do the dieta.
Diet.
Yep. But
Nice.
he got a lot out of it as well.
Nice.
And midway through, his shirt is like totally unbuttoned. He's like just got his chest out. He's playing a maraca, just totally vibing, dancing. People were dancing in the middle of the circle. Karina would take people and they'd start dancing, and people were really just vibing the music. And I had this. Looking over at my brother, I had this sense that we had been here many lifetimes over. I felt in the ceremony that I had this overwhelming sense of belonging. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is, a big part of who I am, is being in these spiritual settings, these ceremonial settings, bringing this type of work into the world. I felt a sense of calm and compassion, like so solid. It wasn't a thought. It was a feeling that just came through me. I heard spirits running around me. I heard fast feet on the floor behind me. I heard, whispers of, this is who you are and this is where you're supposed to be. Like I had been in these types of ceremonies many lifetimes over, and yet I've never been to one of these things before.
What's the passage of time feel like? Are you aware, or are you just like every once in a while you're popping to and be like, has it been an hour? Has it been 4? Has it been 20 minutes?
You're very aware. That was something that struck me. You're very much conscious of the experience. I was able to get up and walk myself to the bathroom.
Did you look at yourself in the mirror?
I did.
Were you like, ah?
I looked, I had been fasting for, a while at that point, and I looked very lean and, like, if this makes sense, I felt as if I looked like myself, if that even makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
And there was just this profound sense of love and compassion, and the downloads really continue to come through. There was this thing came through of, all of that fear that I felt beforehand, fear of the unknown, is useless. It's a worthless expenditure of your time, because the experience that you're heading into may just be full of beauty and bliss. It might be something that's extremely positive, and to live your life in a state of fear is not a worthwhile spend of your time. And that came through incredibly powerfully. I think that we can always get locked up in our fears and our doubts and, what's happening next. And it was very clear that was something that, for me, I can release, I can let go of.
And so it's something you would recommend to our listeners?
I'd recommend it. I would say that the people, it occurred to me as well through that experience that people who have reported, severely negative experiences on ayahuasca, it is because they have, this is, of course, I've only done it once, and I'm excited to do it again. And at the time, before I had done it, I was like, why is this something you'd want to do more than once? From what I hear, as intense as this is, like, I feel like once in a lifetime for ayahuasca is probably plenty. You hear people do it like 40, 50 times. And it's like, that's fucking crazy. But to be honest, coming out of it, I was like, man, I'm ready to do it again.
So there was no harsh come down. It kind of you just taper off.
There's no harsh come down. There's a closing ceremony. Songs continue until 5 a.m. And then, Chief Isku, he starts saying, Bon dia, good morning, to the new day. The whole time after every song, he's going, haush, haush, which is good, everybody good, making sure everyone is doing all right throughout the process. And he has a little closing talk that he gave, which was really about how, in this world that we're living in now, this teaching, this coming into a space of love and compassion for each other, for the earth, is so important because of the shit we've done to ourselves, the trauma and the damage we've inflicted, not only on each other, but on the planet. And this is about, becoming the person that if you're slapped across the face, you're reaching back to that person with a hug, with love, with open arms, because that's how we get out of this cycle of negativity.
Beautiful.
And, I would say that if you're someone who is on the spiritual path, if you're someone who has, been doing a lot of work on yourself, you're going to have a really profound experience of yourself and of the world around you if you venture into ayahuasca. And I highly recommend it for anyone.
Do we have a resource where people can find the real deal? Or is this just like a word of mouth thing that you got to just find the right people? Because there are definitely some fakers out there, some charlatans.
There are definitely fakers. There are definitely, the posers, the spiritual posers out there who are just doing ayahuasca to get weird. But, I think to start, Nate, I don't know what you think about this, but I think they could reach out to us and, we can put them in touch with our people that we know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's Karina or Kirk or
whoever, yeah.
Or Dr. Joshua.
Yeah.
Dr.
Joshua sent me some literature on Hape. And
he sent
so
me that as
I'm
well.
sure he has the same type of stuff on ayahuasca.
And I know that they, Isku, coming from Brazil, he's not the only guy that they're doing ayahuasca with. Dr. Joshua told me he's got some other friends that he does it with. He sits in ceremony with on occasion. So, I think we could definitely, if people want to get in touch with us.
Maybe we can get a full athlete circle.
I think that would be really powerful.
Former players circle and just freaking channel our freaking jungle
talking about,
stuff.
Being on this journey, that was really something that was a big part of this for me was, venturing into this unknown space so that I could bring this to that community, so that we can start doing things like that.
Well,
yeah, when you were talking about ether, something occurred to me. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with dark matter, the theories behind dark matter.
Yeah.
That basically physicists have looked at our universe, we've run the numbers, and there's a whole bunch of things that are there that we can't measure. We don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And when you talk about ether, it makes me think like maybe there's something there. Like the ether is that dark matter. Maybe there's something there. I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
It might be ether here or there.
Either here or ether there.
Can't
they
fight
talk
the
about
ether.
that. Yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's profound. There's a lot of really interesting shit out there that we don't even know about.
Yeah, we'll have to get we'll need a spiritual physicist. We'll have to find one of those. So if anybody knows somebody like that.
Yeah, recommend.
Yeah.
Send the recommend.
Fuck yeah, man.
All right, fellas.
Well, I guess
no. Well, let's talk about the birds.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll cover this
Let's
very
do a quick
fast.
segue.
We're gonna do a whole 180. We're gonna go from
good vibes.
Ayahuasca, good vibes, spirituality to
pettiness and antagonism. I wrote an op-ed in the LA Times. It came out yesterday.
Boom.
It was about bird scooters, which, if you're not familiar with them, they are electronic scooters.
Like a Razor scooter.
Like a Razor scooter, but bigger, and you unlock them with your phone. You have to get the Bird Scooter app, and so you have to have a valid driver's license. Obviously, you have to have a smartphone. You have to download their app. You have to have a credit card, and then you download the app, and then you can unlock the bird.
Over Santa Monica, Venice, the beaches.
It originated in Santa Monica, and it's in Venice. Santa Monica, Venice. It's also at UCLA campus. It's also in San Francisco. They just dropped it in Nashville, in Atlanta. They're going in all these tech areas, tech hubs. It's kind of like synonymous with the whole tech explosion. And it's ruffling a lot of feathers, no pun intended.
Nate specifically.
In certain of these communities.
You've heard him talk about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like them for a variety of different reasons. I think that first of all, they make people lazy. Because there's people just standing on them where I wish they would just ride real bikes and scooters. That's my own personal beef. That's not a big problem. They're annoying. They're in and out of traffic. They're on the sidewalks.
Yes. Yeah. Keep in mind that they are stored on the sidewalk. They're just,
anywhere.
They're just placed anywhere, and when you're done with them, you just leave them.
You just leave them
anywhere.
So you can walk out of your house in the morning, and there's a bunch of bird scooters on your front lawn. I mean, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And if you try to move them, they beep the whole time.
Right.
The people who ride them don't really obey traffic laws. They don't know where they're supposed to ride them, on the sidewalk, on the street.
They should be wearing a helmet. They're not.
They're not wearing a helmet.
They should be on the street. They're not.
Right. There should be
sidewalks.
18 or 21 and over. They're not. Sometimes you see 14, 15-year-olds double riding, tandem riding.
I saw a lot. I almost got a picture because there was a guy on Venice Boardwalk with his skateboard perpendicular across the bird. So he's standing like on a cross.
Oh, wow.
Riding the bird. And I'm just like, I wish I could. I hope he falls because I want this on tape.
Right. And as a football player, as an athlete, as someone who uses his physical body, as someone who pays attention to what's going on around him, assesses his immediate threats, this stuff annoys me because not only is it dangerous, but it's irritating to see that people are unwilling to use their own energy and their own manpower, or actually I was corrected on Twitter, human-powered. Because man-powered is unacceptable. You can't say that.
Can't say it.
So anyway, I wrote this op-ed.
Human-powered.
I wrote this op-ed. I submitted to the LA Times. The angle they actually liked the most was the homeless angle and how I believe that it exacerbates the homeless issue in the area by making these people more oblivious to it. Obviously, homeless people don't have a data plan and a phone and a license and all that, so they can't ride it. And it was more about the tech companies in general moving to Venice and thinking their shit don't stink and displacing people in the community who don't like these bird scooters. Okay, so I wrote the article about that, and now I'm going to read some mean tweets.
Some of the responses.
Responses, and I was not prepared for the vitriol that I received.
Before you get into that, I read the article. I thought it was very amusing. It was a little tongue-in-cheek, but it had a good point about the homeless population. But your beef with the bird scooters themselves were fairly lighthearted. Like, you definitely were like, you weren't too much of an old man on the lawn being like, get off my lawn, you stupid kids and your bird scooters.
No.
Like, it was even-handed and entertaining.
I talked about how Snapchat, purchased hundreds of thousands of square feet in the area and displaced a youth homeless shelter, affordable housing, and local businesses. I talked about Hulu and all these, and Google's massive property line in Venice has a homeless encampment hugged up on it.
Yeah.
200 people live there and shit there and piss there, bicycle parts, tarps, tents. This is where they live, on the steps of Google. And I believe that the tech explosion makes the homeless problem worse.
Yeah,
that's what I believe, and some people disagreed with me.
Let's hear them.
The first one I got was, there is a kernel of a potent op-ed here, the juxtaposition of rich and poor in new vehicular form, but overall, this piece by one-time Denver Bronco Nathan Sirius suffers from a lack of editorial GPS.
Wow. So
they're just off.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just bagging. Yeah.
Well, but no, it gets much better.
Yeah.
The next one was, It's the laziest article I've seen about Venice Beach, scooters, safety, homeless. Your tech bros drive cars. Your homeless have a legal right to be on the street. 15 miles per hour is far slower than motor vehicles, which are actually killing and maiming people.
What was his point? That their cars
The cars are worse.
Yeah, right.
And this was a point that I got a lot, that cars are worse.
Right.
So don't try to stop murder because genocide is worse. Or something.
Right. Yeah.
And then this one girl said, and please joke about how people working in digital media are always on their phones instead of considering how their own families might be wrecked by addiction, mental health problems, and homelessness. Hi, Nathan Sirius. You made me so mad before noon, and to be honest, it's bad for my skin.
Oh my God. What were people pissed about?
It's really weird because it's just an attack on like technology, and the bird, is that the idea of disrupting your system. So we're going to put these scooters out here that you can rent, and it's really easy, but yeah, it disrupts a business. And I think people are really offended when you attack that style and school of thought, like technology is not the answer, God forbid. And I don't have a big a beef with birds as he does, but I think they are irritating, but I think they could be a sign of better things to come when it comes to ride sharing, and like, it's kind of like Uber. In a lot of places like LA, it was a godsend because we had such terrible taxis.
Yeah.
And I understand how it pissed off other people. And it's, we need regulation. We can't just let people be a taxi service without the same safety precautions that we would apply to a taxi service. So keep going, Nate.
Keep going.
Yeah, okay. You fail to argue why more cars are on the streets is better than more birds. You also repeatedly claim that bird isn't for the homeless because smartphones, but fail to mention that half of the homeless population does indeed have smartphones.
Do they?
Yeah,
I
wonder where you got that stat from.
Absolutely
You got that from
not.
the University of your anus.
And then I told him, I don't know what I responded to this guy. I actually responded to a lot of these people, which I sort of forget. Yeah. But then he said, I wouldn't use anecdotal evidence as proof of an unsubstantiated claim. Since you still haven't explained why cars would be better than birds, why didn't you just write a piece arguing for building more shelters and homeless services in Venice? I missed that part of your piece. So he wanted me to write what he wanted me to write.
That's what you call a straw man argument.
But then there's a lady named Alyssa Walker. She seems like a sweet lady. She's got 20,000 followers. She writes for Curbed LA. And then she tweeted out like 5 different takedowns of my article by 5 different people. And then she said, here are some of the people I see who use scooters and skateboards to get around LA using transportation methods that Nathan Sirius considers pathetic. And she included 4 pictures of little kids on normal skateboards and bikes. And it's incredibly disingenuous. Never did I say that little kids on normal skateboards are pathetic. Right. I said I believe that electric bikes and electric skateboards, I find them pathetic. Which I do.
It is fucking pathetic.
Exactly. Use your fucking body.
Use your...
Expend some energy.
Anytime I see people, sure, they're fun. They can be fun, but most of the time you see somebody on a fucking electric scooter, an electric fucking skateboard, they look like a piece of shit.
Exactly.
And that's just science.
I have a feeling of sadness for that person. Like, you can't fucking even just motorize. You can't human power it.
No, and people are afraid to expend energy at all.
It's almost really as if here, though, guys. Come on.
It's almost as if to win in the game of life is to expend as little energy as possible.
Well, that's what we've turned it into.
And to press buttons and have the world come to you or have something take you to where you want to be.
That's what we've turned it into. These are the people who would do ayahuasca and have a fucking psychological breakdown.
And really, the point of this was not about, cars versus bird scooters. The CEO of Bird talks about solving the quote-unquote first last mile problem.
Right.
In that we need to travel a mile or under that, and so we need to find a solution for how to get that far. And I think you can walk.
That'd be great.
Yeah. But you don't see people walking. You don't see people walking in Venice. You just don't. So I got a lot of car arguments. Cars and their drivers pollute our air, cause climate change, kill residents on foot, bike, and take up nearly all our public space. But it's scooters that are ruining our cities.
Did you talk about cars?
I didn't. Not once. No. This is how people kind of rationalize.
It's a different issue.
Exactly. This is how Twitter works.
Yeah, right. Everyone should have an electric car. There should be less cars in LA.
Right.
I mean, who the fuck is arguing that?
Exactly. And so...
Yeah, and I don't think birds really reduce the amount of cars. I mean, maybe, like you say, like how long, I would like to know the average distance of a bird ride.
They're not going very far.
So it's like, are you really, you're
up
cutting...
and down the beach.
Yeah, what are you really gaining? And like, I don't have a big of a problem with birds because I would like to see, actually like to see electric bikes, the pedal assist bikes being available for a share. For that reason, because people on bikes are a little more safe.
Yeah.
They're a little more aware. Like if you're a bike rider, I didn't have a car for a year in Los Angeles. I rode my bike to work and I rode it everywhere. And it was like, man, your head's on a swivel. Yeah. And I rode through, neighborhoods. I only rode down one busy street, but man, you're way safer on a bike than a scooter.
Absolutely.
You're more
because
aware.
you're actually engaged in the process. Right. These people who ride the scooters, they look like mannequins on a conveyor belt.
Right.
They are absolutely motionless. They have no facial expression. They're in flip-flops. They have earphones in. They can't hear traffic.
Probably looking at their phone.
And not wearing helmets.
Here's another one I got. As the chief of staff for a small tech company in Venice, I can promise you that all of my bird ride devoted employees read newspapers, see more than the phone in our hand, think of more than our next text, and hear more than music in our wasted ears, judgmental prick.
Wow.
Good Lord. She got upset.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was pretty mad. She was mad.
Judgmental prick.
Judgmental prick.
See, that's the thing that strikes me so deeply. Is the defensiveness of this shit. It shows you a ton about where people are at right now.
Yeah.
People are defensive about how weak they are becoming.
Yeah. Seriously, it's true.
I like
it's true.
that.
Seriously, you're defensive that you're becoming exactly what Nate pointed out. Sorry, guys.
And then there's this, which is kind of a funny stretch. So last week, in advance of I knew the bird scooter piece was going to come out, I tweeted a link to the Nashville bird explosion, and I said, "Beware, Nashville! The tyranny of birds is upon you. Get yourself some wire cutters and start snipping." It's a joke, but some like real Twitter moralists out there glommed onto this thing and started tweeting at me, "You're advocating for attempted murder, and if they cut their lines and they die, it's actual murder. What's wrong with you?"
What does that mean? Cut the lines of the bird scooters?
Yeah, because the birds would not work if you cut the lines.
Exactly.
But that's murder.
And then they started tweeting.
Because the idea is that you get on, start using it, all of a sudden it's like a movie in the 80s where like, oh, somebody cut my brakes. And you're like... You crash into something.
Right. That's what they think. And so they actually
like
took screenshots of that and sent that to Lindy with Athletes for Care and Athletes for Care and was like, "You should really reconsider your alignment with Nate Jackson. He's revealing himself to be a horrible human, encouraging homicide."
He's revealing himself to be a fucking great thinker, a great modern thinker. That's what he's revealing himself to be.
And then lastly, there was a Silicon Valley dominatrix who called herself Silicon Dom, Ava.
Silicon Dom.
That's got to be a good business right now. Like, you got a lot of rich dudes
who are fucking really weird.
Yeah. I mean,
wanting to get fucking dominated.
Yeah, that's got to be great business.
She actually has a blog, and I read some of her stuff. It's kind of funny. But she tweeted a link to my stuff, and she said, "Football bro who can afford to live in a highly walkable neighborhood adds to LA congestion with his own car, with a straight face claims that everyone else is the problem. Mazel tov on being paid to be a mediocre thinker in front of an audience."
Oh, that's so mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So
got some real intellectuals hitting you up.
So I responded to that. I put, "I have no money. I don't own a car. I wrote this while smirking. I wrote it for free, and I'm not Jewish. Other than that, you're spot on."
Very nice.
So anyway, that was what yesterday was for me. And I feel like all of those people, wherever they are, need to come to here, and we need to sit in a circle and do ayahuasca together.
Yeah.
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 and maybe we can get to the root of this problem. I don't, I was confounded by it. I was amused by it, but also just like, wow, I mean, some people don't even hear your argument if they're threatened by any little piece of what it might insinuate.
Well, it shows you how much, how insecure people are with their own physical empowerment and where they're at and, how they go about living their lives. Because you dinged on something, dude.
Here's what the actual tweet said. What you're suggesting that people do is attempted murder. It's actual murder if someone dies because their brakes have been cut and they can't stop. WTF is wrong with you? This was a former quote-unquote mayoral candidate in Seattle. Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty big stretch. Like,
yeah.
Were you saying you weren't saying cut the brakes?
I never said cut anything.
If you snip the wires of that thing, first of all, they're probably not going to show up anymore on the
throttle.
app.
Exactly, dude.
You're not going to be able to start it.
Nate, you're a murderer.
Nate,
I know,
you're the man, brother.
Hey, man, I'm fighting the power. You know what I mean?
I love it.
I'm fighting the fake Russian bots out there who are trying to fucking prop up these weird business models. But
yeah.
And I may be
dehumanize.
I may be a grumpy Luddite, afraid of the advancement of technology and wanting things to stay the same. But I also do believe that it's bad for our community to have these things everywhere on the sidewalk, in front of people, beeping everywhere, crossing in front of traffic. I think it's bad for people to use these devices instead of walk under a mile. I think it's bad to show kids that that's how you get around in short spaces. I may be wrong. It's my opinion. That's why it was in the opinion page. But people seem very rattled.
Yeah. LA Times opinion page.
Yeah.
So everybody can check that out.
Yeah, check it out.
We get like 9 free articles.
Yeah,
so
right.
You can read it 9 times.
Yeah, read it 9 times and tweet at me and tell me what an idiot I am. So I know this pod went a little bit long. But that's okay because sometimes we have a lot to say.
We got a lot to say.
Because we're trying to strengthen the mind.
Strengthen the mind.
We're trying to exercise the soul.
Exercise the soul.
Sharpen the instincts.
Sharpen them instincts.
Heal the body.
Heal the body.
Heal the body.
Fuck bird scooters too.
Cause everybody did a really good job on the pod. I said everybody did a really good job on the pod. Said everybody did a really good job on the pod, on the pod, on the pod. Everybody did a really good job on the pod, on the pod. Eben, you did a really good job on the pod.
Thank you.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah, it was really good.
Nathan,
yeah,
you did a really good job on the pod.
Thank you. And Jed,
yeah,
you did a really good job on the pod.
Baby, yeah.
I said everybody did a really good job on the pod, 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 on the pod.
Hey everybody, make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you find your podcasts. Check us out at www.mindfulwarriorpodcast.com. We've got Nate's books up on the site. It'll send you right to Amazon. We've got 2 fantastic pieces. It's Slow Getting Up and Fantasy Man. I highly recommend. We've got our sponsor, our headliner, Athletes for Care, our organization. Check us out. If you want to get involved, go to athletesforcare.org. We love you guys so much. Keep doing your thing. Keep meditating. Keep thinking about life. We love you.